Hello YouTube. Tonight I wanted to show you how I have cleaned the low speed shutter mechanism on the older model Pentax, Honeywell Pentaxes. This happens to be an H3A. H series and the S series are close enough so that the same process would probably, as far as I know, would work for all of them. Now this is a parts donor, so it is what it is, but it's just for demonstrative purposes. So your low speed mechanism is right inside there. Where's my pointer? Right inside there. It's a little box at the bottom of the light box, and that's got a little clockwork in there, and it engages when the shutter speed hits 30th of a second or less. It might be a 15th, but I think it's a 30th. In any case, let's dig in and see what it looks like. Now, I've already taken the bottom off. I actually had to put the part back into this camera. There's a couple of ways you can do this. You can do this with the front on, which is not terrible, but I think for purposes of demonstration I will take the front off. Bottom plate's already off, so you would take the bottom plate off, expose all that, and then go after the screws on the front. I'm going to take a little more effort to keep my hands out of the way. Now when you take the front off of these older Pentaxes, I say older, pretty much all the Pentaxes, the mechanicals, are a thing of the past, so they're all old. So you get those screws off out of there. There's actually 4 of them, but I'm missing one. And then you can lift off that front. Now when you do that, you want to have a nice clean area. You want to pay close attention, because this one still has a couple. Each one of these corner screws on that faceplate is going to have little copper shims. Let's see if I can show you one. Oh, stay on camera. Little copper shims. If you can see it, that's it right there. Little tiny thing, very thin, and they don't just go anywhere. They're very specific to their given place. The different thicknesses, they're all the same size, but they're different thicknesses, and they're put in place so that the camera mount is completely square with the film plane. I had originally thought that they were to make sure that the front of the camera was flush with the surface. Anyhow, when you take that that front plate off, do it slowly, be careful, and look for those shims. Keep them in order. Wherever you find one, make sure it goes back exactly in the spot it came from. So having a because if you drop them inside, that can create a real problem. So that's why I say, be nice and slow, lift it up, take a look, and then see if any stuck to the back side, and which ones are still here. And these, apparently at one point I had marked these so I wouldn't lose them. In any case, I'm going to take them off of there. I don't want to lose them anyway. Not that it really matters. This is a donor camera. So we have the front of the camera off. Right there is the box. Now in here, and it's going to be a little tough to tell. In here there's a little fork sticking out of the end of the box that just goes over I'm hoping you can see this. There's an arm here that appears to be copper or brass that extends underneath this wheel, and that fork engages with the end. I'm just tightening that on there so it doesn't fall off. With the end of that arm, and it just comes off. You don't have to do anything special. So we're going to find the two screws, one here, and they're pretty small. There's one that's stuck to the screwdriver, and the other one is right there on this particular model, just above the tripod socket. I'm going to stick my finger in the light box so it doesn't just fall. And then that screw also stuck to the screwdriver, so it came right out. And there it is. That is your slow speed mechanism. So once you get to that point, it'll have two screws, one in each corner. Undo those, and those are very tiny screws. Take those screws out, and that little cover will come off like that, and there it is. Little clockwork thing, and that's all it does. Now, my experience with these is they get dirty. Could be anything: oil, dirt, dust, whatever. They get dirty and they get sluggish. Now, this is just the most likely problem. There are several points along the way where things can get slowed down. Right here, this same arm I was just describing to you, that has to pass through. It'll be a pain to get it out now. That has to pass through a bushing, which is close fitting, so that could get dry or dirty. I suppose you could put a drop of oil underneath it if you can. I'm not quite sure which is the best way to go about it. Probably from this side, and maybe get some oil down in behind it. Goes right up to the body, and then there's another point where it comes up through the top plate, which is not as tight fitting, but it's pretty close. So you could clean and or oil that point also. But let's just deal with what we've got here. So what I've done in the past is taken contact cleaner, electrical contact cleaner, and sprayed it out and blow dry it with compressed air. And this is another thing that, with mixed results, I've run them alternately dry or lubed. If you're going to oil it, and I'm not saying it's the better idea or the worse idea. This camera's 50 plus years old. You're rolling the dice either way. What I have done is put a dot, and you'll see them when you've got the thing in your hand. It's got pivot points on both sides, as opposed to points where it's screwed together. You can put a dot of oil on each one of those pivot points, and then, because you want to be very sparing with the oil, come in with your Q-tip and wipe off any oil that's on the surface. And do that with both sides. I don't think I get into oiling the mechanism itself. I think that kind of, with the precision and delicacy, oil can be either your friend or your foe. Too much and it'll be just as bad as if it's gummed up with dirt and sludge, whatever. So that's it. That's really all there is to it. And to put it back together again, let's see if I can do this. This thing's not quite in there right, so I've got to that'll do. So to put it back together again, you put the top on, you put the two tiny little screws in. I'm going to leave the top off so you can see, well, see as good as you can. You're going to put that thing back in there. You're going to find that little pin and put that fork over it. There, like that. That's in the wrong position. Well, this isn't going to cooperate. And you probably can't see it anyhow. I just want you to be able to see. And put it back in there with that fork going over the pin. Then you take your screws, put them back in their place. I hope it'll just go. And it's not. So I'm gonna, hopefully this screwdriver is magnetic enough where it'll hold. Okay, and you do that with both screws. Now what you probably, I'm sure you can't see, is that these holes where the two screws go are elongated this way. And that is, as far as I can tell, so you can adjust. It'll slide back and forth just a little bit, and it'll adjust its fit with relation to that pin that you put the fork over. If it's too close, it could jam. If it's too far away, it could slip out. And it also affects how accurate the timing is. I've learned that a very tiny adjustment can make a big difference in how it performs. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that second screw in there. And basically that is the entire operation. It's very simple, pretty straightforward. And then once you get that back in there with the cover on, of course, then you can put the front back on. And when you do that, you're going to take your shims that you have saved, kept in order, and you're going to put them back exactly where they came from. And what I have done in the past is taken some nail polish and actually glued them down. There's another thing, be very delicate with how you, if you're going to use an adhesive like nail polish, just a dot, because all you want to do is hold that in place. Then you put the front back on. Oops, wrong screws. Sure. I know you don't really need to see this. In for a penny, in for a pound, I guess. Since all these videos I do are more or less the same. And it always is a good idea to take pictures. Alright, I'm going to let my hand be in the way. And just put this thing in there. Okay, you get the idea. That's good enough. You put the front back on. You can put the bottom plate back on. Your top cover, there's no reason to take it off to do this operation, so that will already be in place. And then as long as you've done everything correctly, it should work fine. The only thing, and I just did it. Okay, so off the cover comes. And I'm going to show you something that bites me every time I do this. And I've done this a lot, and it's still, I wind up taking the front off at least once because I made a mistake. Right in here is, I don't know what it's called, but it's a little flappy thing that will stop down your lens when you fire the shutter. That thing pops up, hits the pin on the back of the M42 lens, and makes the iris go for the picture. That, when you put the front of the camera back on, grab it, pull it forward, and then lay the front on. Oops, because there's a oops. Well, I'm not doing so good here. Well, this is a parts camera, of course it's messed up. There's a pad that pushes that, and if you just take it like that and stick it down there, invariably it's going to wind up underneath and then behind that pusher. So make sure and have a hold of that thing, pulling it forward, and then visually inspect it to make sure that that pin is in front of that paddle, because if you don't, it'll be a mystery that will confound you and give you fits until you find it. So that is pretty much everything I wanted to show you. This was in response to a couple of people that wanted to see how it was done. It's very simple, very straightforward. It doesn't take a heck of a lot of skill, and doesn't take very long. Just take your time, take pictures, keep those shims in order. Don't let them fall anywhere. Keep track of your screws. I like, if I can find one, I like to use the egg cartons. I don't have one right here, but the bottom half of the egg cartons where the eggs actually fit in, I usually have on a camera that I'm going to keep. I have one right on my work surface that I throw the parts in as I'm going along, and I've had that work out very well. So with that in mind, I guess that's the end. So until next